Saxdor Yachts and their dealer in the UK, Ardell Boats, have very generously lent us this Saxdor 200 Sport, the scooter variant, for a bit of a long-term test. We tested this boat with 100 and 115 horsepower engines a few weeks ago, but they really wanted us to have a go on the 175, and I thought, well, let's have it for a bit longer, see what it's like to live with and give it a proper test. So here it is, ready to go. The first thing we've got to do is get it from here in Southampton to where we're going to launch it in Poole. Right, we've got it back to Poole without a hitch, thankfully. It's a nice easy boat trail actually, not too wide and not a massively long trailer, so towed pretty easily. So now we've got the fenders on, got the covers off, and we're just going to get it down the slipway and into the water for the first launch.
Quite floating.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
A little bit more detail on this exact boat then. As was well publicised when this launched, you can get the base boat for £23,000 with a 100 horsepower engine. This boat is £41,743, but that's because on top of the standard spec, it's got the Mercury 175 V6 with power steering and fly-by-wire throttle. It's got deck cushions, it's got deck lights, it's got these side windows here. These are extra. It's got covers for both the console and the jockey seat. It's got the twin Simrad Geo9 XSE MFDs as well, so that's got the vessel view on it as well, the Mercury vessel view, so you can see all of your engine information through those. You also have a chart plotter, of course. It's got Mercury's threat deterrent system, which is like an immobilizer for the engine. It's got trim tabs, and it's also got the Fusion stereo. So it's got a pretty healthy spec on it. It's not the highest spec you can get, because you can also get a T-top, you can get 4 seats here, you can also get a camper version, so this whole thing lifts up and you get an infill so you can sleep under there. But certainly in terms of the engine, this is top of the range, and well, performance should be pretty astonishing if the 115 was anything to go by. But let's get out there and find out. Just blasted out of Poole Harbour to Old Harry Rocks to give it a bit of a run, and the first thing you notice about this 4-stroke V6 is how smooth and quiet it is. I mean, it's a tick over now and you can barely hear it, and because it has fly-by-wire throttle, it's so smooth in and out of gear. Again, coming in and out is, you can barely tell you're going in and out of gear. But you've got power steering as well, so it's much lighter than the cable versions we had on the previous boats. So to manoeuvre, it's much more easy. The other thing is it's quick. I mean, when we came out, and it looks flat, it always looks flat on the camera, but there's a little chop here, and it was cruising at 38 knots, absolutely no problem. Topped out at about 43. We've got about 70% fuel on, a couple of big blokes, and yeah, 43 knots, absolutely no problem. It's really relishing these conditions, and I have to say, the immediate impression is what a difference that 175 engine makes. Well, this unfortunately is the reality of boating in the UK in the summer. day 2 of having the Saxdor to play with, and it's very high winds and a lot of rain. So sadly there'll be no play today, but tomorrow is another day and it looks a lot better. So we'll give it another go then. Now this is much more like it. Now this fine craft is the Motorboat and Yachting Tender. As worn and reliable as an old pair of slippers and about half as watertight. But it's what's going to get us out to the boat, so we'll take it.
Stepped hole, is it?
It is twin step. You can see the whole shape really well actually. 2 steps down there. And there we go. The boat immediately feels more sophisticated with the 175 engine. It's not just the engine and how quiet and smooth it is, even at startup and idling. It's the fact that you've got the fly-by-wire throttle, so it's so easy in and out of gear. It's the fact you've got power steering. So yes, it's a small boat, but when we had the other boats on test, the 100, the 115, which are using cable, much harder to move them around because the steering's so stiff and the throttle is tricky in and out of gear. On this, it's so smooth, makes the boat very easy to control. It just feels far more grown up with this engine setup. Driver's lock is really good. I still think that the footrest is at a bit of a too steeper angle really, as your feet do start to go a bit numb after a while, but I like how close you are to the helm. And the thing about this throttle is it's got a really big tall hub on it, so you can rest your palm on there and you can use your thumb to adjust the neck of the throttle, so you have really good fine control when you're moving quickly out at sea. It's a very light boat this. It's somewhere in the region of 750 kilograms without the engine. It's got a twin stepped hull, so it planes nice and early. I mean, we're just over 10 knots now. You're planing at about 11-12 knots. You get the bow up and a little short chop here in the narrows in Poole Harbour, and it just means you're protecting yourself from the spray. Because it's exposed, this boat. It's got quite a low freeboard. Obviously you haven't got a huge amount of protection apart from the screen, but it stays dry. I mean, this is conditions where spray could be thrown over the boat, and so far so good. We are now going at 40 knots through a little chop, and I cannot believe how soft the ride is. For a boat of this size, it covers the ground so comfortably. The ride is just so soft. This is a nasty little chop, this. And we're going through it at 40 knots, absolutely no problem. I take it back to 30, which remarkable how much bigger this boat feels than it really is, just because of the ride. Feels very comfortable indeed, and inspires confidence. Yeah, it's a very, very well sorted hull, and the engine helps as well, just because you've got so much power on tap. It's so responsive. The reaction to the throttle is just electric. Yeah, it's, you know, it's choppy enough out here. Plenty of 20-footers would be struggling, and it just takes it in its stride, and we bang into it here, head sea. Remarkably composed, I have to say. A bit like when I drove the 115, you have to be careful with the corners. There's a lot of power on tap, and you just need to feed it in carefully. Otherwise you might get a bit of slide. But generally, it's quite easy just to feed in the power. I mean, there's a lot of grip, and then feed it in and get yourself out the turns. Considering how short the hull is actually, and the power, it's remarkably comfortable in the turns. It actually feels a bit better sorted than the 115 I drove. I mean, if you give it full beans and a hard turn, it is just going to spin its power away. But if you're gentle on the inputs, it's grippy enough, yeah. And then once you want to get back out on the straight, when you get yourself out the hole, the acceleration is just electric. Really feels alive. And the position is good. Again, as I said, having that tall hub on the throttle means that you can brace yourself and have quite good fine control on the throttle itself. Driving position comes into its own, but you can really steady yourself on the wheel, which is central, nice and close to you. Yeah, it feels like a driver's boat, and you can really brace yourself in hard turns, which you need to do. The following sea, it actually feels happier, faster, skipping across the crests rather than getting caught in the trough. Because it's not got a very long hull, you do drop into the trough, so you sort of want to skip over the top, and it's very good at that because the landings are so soft, and again, because you've got such quick reactions from the throttle to the engine. It's actually proving so manoeuvrable. Our photographer's drone is struggling to keep up. It's got a lot of grip, and it's just out of the hole so quickly. If you do a hard turn, you're gone in the other direction. It's like a fly. It is brilliantly responsive, and that is the biggest difference, I think, between this and the other two engines that you can have. It's the responsiveness. Yes, the flat out speed is impressive, but it's that mid-range go. It just takes off. You've always got power on tap to get yourself out of trouble. It completely changed the driving experience, actually. And then it's smooth and quiet. If you just want to cruise your 20-25 knots, the engine is barely audible and it feels very relaxing, but you can really have some fun and chuck it about if you want to. And it's the smoothness of the ride is still really impressing me. We're catching air here, and it lands really softly and square. You don't have to worry too much about landing at an awkward angle. It feels like it's going to look after you when you land. Yeah, it's an easy boat to have fun on. Now, I haven't driven the version with the bucket seats, but I'd wager that in conditions like that, you'd be glad to have the jockey. They give you great support, you're sitting nice and upright, and you can really brace yourself. I wonder whether the bucket seats, you might be sitting in a bit of an awkward position to take hard landings, and it's also just as easy to lean and brace yourself. So you can lean on the backrest, brace your feet against the console like that, and you're in a really good position where you can just brace your knees and take the impact. And that again is where you hold the throttle like that. You don't want to be holding like that, it's really sensitive, so you get jerky. So it's nice that you can just hold the throttle down there and make fine adjustments when it chops up. Some things I've noticed. Yes, it has a very low open transom, but it does mean it's very easy to get on from a dinghy, and it will be quite easy to put yourself out the water. However, it would be a lot easier with with the A-frame. I'm still not quite sure why you can't have a bathing ladder, but it is easier to get in and out of than it looks. And these lockers are really, really useful. They're the perfect size to slot the boat's fenders into, and you can keep the lines in here as well. They're also drained, so if the ropes are wet they can drain off quite easily. And it's nice to have this rubber strake all the way around. You've got fender attached here because obviously there's no side rails, there's no guard rails, so you can't attach fenders to them, so you have two of those on each side. And then of course you can use the cleats fore and aft to tie fenders to if you want to. And actually, you know, it's 19.5 feet long and 7.5 feet wide, this boat. It's very easy to move around. It helps that you've got this central seating here, the jockey seating, because it means that you can walk, especially across the aft part of the deck, really comfortably. Sometimes boats of this size, it's very awkward to move around. You've got these nice wide decks here. It's reasonably easy to pass up by the helm as well. So if boat of its side, it's very easy to move around on. There's even more storage under this central jockey seat here. It's quite a good space. However, in the original test I thought that these appeared a little bit flimsy really, because it's quite a heavy unit, and I still think it really, to be honest, I think it'd be much better to have some catches like these here on this forward locker. Just would feel a little bit more secure given the weight and the forces that are going to be going through this seat. If you need even more storage, then the forward section of the deck here lifts up and reveals this huge storage area. Now you can see the bathing cushions are inside at the moment. They can come out and be put on this when it's flush, so you can sunbathe here. But there's also an option where you can have a sort of tent that connects this part here down to the deck, so you could sleep on there if you really wanted to. But most people are just going to use it for a big storage locker, as we're doing now. And the windscreen is adjustable. A little bit of a gimmick, but it does mean it slides right down. So you unscrew these, both sides, and it slides right down. You can see it slides down to this point here, which means you can get the console cover on. But when it's up like this, it does provide really good protection. The mechanism is a little bit crude. You probably want just pull and push poppers here, not twist, but it works reasonably well. And as I say, the protection is good once it's up and in place. See, the boat's got this rubber decking, and it's very practical actually, because you have to be prepared for the fact that you're going to get water over the back of this transom. If you've got shoes on forgotten, they will get wet, but it's completely designed to do it. It'll swill in and it'll swill back out again, and it's lovely and grippy, this stuff. But it's just worth remembering, if you're on here in your shoes, that you're going to get water on board. It's just the nature of it. It's a bit of a jet ski element, but as you see, drains off immediately, and then you're just left with a very wet but very grippy deck. But you're going to want to make sure all your stuff's away. Well, we took a nice pit stop at Pool Key, but now it's the most important test of all. It's the mother test. My mum, Rose,
hello,
who has been boating for many years, so it's going to be a bit of crucial consumer testing. But let's see how it goes. What did you make of that blast then?
well, my confidence is well and truly blown.
Do you notice? So my parents have got a Jeannot camera at 625, which is slightly bigger than this. Did you notice a difference if we'd have been out in the Jeannot?
Absolutely, I think that would have just been crashing into the chop.
Yeah.
We were just skimming, and it was amazing.
Do you like the way you sit?
I do, actually really comfortable. I get my feet flat on the floor, which I can't in the camera.
Yeah.
And well, you were shouting at me, but you didn't seem to get too much.
No, we've got the screen down now. The windscreen's right down, and it still does a pretty good job of putting the breeze over your head. Not as good as if it's up, obviously, but it does tend to wobble a bit when it's up. So I put it down because it's choppy, and actually it's not too bad at all. So thumbs up then, is it?
Yeah, definitely thumbs up.
Oh, that's good. There you go. There's a box ticked. I've done the mother test. Now it's time for the wife test. Ready?
Yeah.
Let's go. My better half wasn't that keen to be on camera, so I'll let her reaction when I open the taps do the talking. Well done. Biggest swimmers? Biggest swimmers? I sort of wondered what you use this boat for apart from blasting around. Would it be a bit of a glorified jet ski? So it looks like one with this seating. But actually, we've come out here, we've latched onto a buoy, and with 2 people on board, you know, in good weather, it's actually really comfortable. You can swim off it easily. You can tuck a paddleboard down there. Obviously, there's a place to lie up in front. I presume if you have the bench seating option, you can have a 2-way reversible bench here and maybe a table, so it's a bit better if you want to eat on board. But for sort of water sports, swimming, actually this layout works really well. Of course, if you want a bit of shelter, you're going to have the T-top, which will cover this area. That forward area is always going to be exposed, but then again it's a sunbathing spot anyway. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I worried that you'd come out and you think, okay, what do I do next? I blasted around, but chuck the anchor out, latch onto a buoy, and you know, with 2 people on board, as I say, it's actually a really comfortable platform. Well, the wind has unfortunately been playing havoc down here in Poole, so we've had time for one more quick blast, but now we're going to get it out the water again before the winds really pick up, which will make it very difficult to get back onto the trailer. So we're going to do that now and get the boat back to Southampton. All strapped on and ready to go back onto the road just as the weather's coming in. But yeah, there we go, latched onto the trailer, covers on. Now we just got to go back home. This extended trial of the 200 Sport allowed me to learn some important things about this boat. Firstly, the 175 horsepower engine is the one to go for. I know it takes the shine off the starting price, but if you can stretch to it, the reward out on the water will reimburse you in spades. Though the scooter version is better than I had expected it to be at playing patio, there are things you can do with the spec to make it more user-friendly at rest. Saxdor already has plans for an even more leisure-focused deck layout, with opposing seats, 2-way backrests and pop-up tables. There is some finessing to do in order for it to live up to its full potential, but the 200 Sport is a breath of fresh air in the starter boat sector, and, even with the larger motor, still a relative bargain given the levels of performance and how talented its hull is.